Welcome to Swim Stories Unplugged, the podcast where every ripple tells a real story. I'm your host, Hetal Sampat, and if you're here, you already know swimming isn't just a sport, it's therapy, it's family, it's the one place where the world quiets down and all you hear is your breath, your kick, and the heartbeat of the water. 2 years ago, I was searching for a pool to rebuild my body after cancer treatments. What I found was a master's lane that rebuilt my soul. That lane turned into this show because Olympians get the spotlight. But master swimmers, we've got the stories, the comebacks, the breakthroughs, the mornings we dragged ourselves out of bed at 4 a.m. just to feel alive again. Today, we are diving in with Coach Mallory, someone who went from begging her grandparents who signed her up for Summer League in 2007 to coaching 4 lanes of pure magic at the YMCA in Columbus, Ohio. She is a distance freestyler, a 400 IM lover, a lane 1 miracle worker, and yes, she is still chasing high school PRs at 28. Get ready for goosebumps, chlorine nostalgia, and a slogan that'll stick. There's room for everyone in our 4 lanes. If you love what you hear, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an episode when it drops. New stories splash in every week. Let's get unplugged. Hi, Mallory. Welcome to Swim Stories Unplugged. I'm so glad we connected and we are going to have this conversation right now.
I'm so excited to be here. I was really honored that you reached out and wanted to include me.
Yes, I'm excited. So, usually we have the first segment I have is the first splash. So, tell us about the memory you have of when you first got into the water.
Gosh, okay. So first got into the water. I mean, that I have a really good memory, and that predates my memory. I have been around water my whole life. My mom grew up as well, she was a lifeguard and she was a swim lessons instructor. And so she understood very early on the importance of me getting in swim lessons and getting in the water. I grew up in Ohio, very close to Lake Erie. And my family has a cottage at Atwood Lake, which is a smaller lake in Ohio. And so, I was constantly around water and learning how to swim just, by being around my cousins who were older than me, and also just, informal swim lessons as well. But I would say my first memory of competitive swimming was the summer of 2007. It's when I turned 10. So I was technically still, a 9-year-old swimmer for that summer. And I had gone through the swim lesson program at my local pool. And I had independently come to the conclusion that, when I got through all of the levels of swim lessons, that the next logical step would be for me to join the swim team. I don't think anyone ever told me that. I think I just had it in my mind that it's like, okay, when I'm done with that, swim team's the next step. And my mom, who had grown up teaching swim lessons, or I mean, she had grown up lifeguarding for swim team, her memory of swim team is, oh no, this means you have to wake up early and get to the pool early. And she didn't want to do that. She's a teacher. And so she didn't want to spend her summers also waking up early. And so I begged and begged, and no, I don't really want to do that. And so my grandparents actually signed me up. And so the rest is history. I mean, the way that ended up is that my mom started coming to practices and she was like, wait, I actually like this. And so even when I was old enough to drive myself to the pool, she would still drive up separately just to stay there and watch practices, which at the time I was kind of, embarrassed about, but now I realized how sweet that is. So that's what got me into it in the summer of 2007. And I have, continued on with just a few breaks here and there until today as a master swimmer.
That's amazing. Can you tell me about your journey of how club swimming was for you when you joined the swim team?
Yeah. So when I first joined the swim team, it was with the Amherst Summer Swim Team in Amherst, Ohio. And so it was very much a typical summer league swim team. I mean, we had a huge team. I think when I started, there had to have been at least 200 kids on the team. I mean, it was like the thing to do in Amherst in the summer. And I kind of struggled to make friends at first. I think just because the core group of friends that I had at that point, none of them were swimmers. And it wasn't until my brother joined and he quickly made friends, and he's younger than me. And so he joined the next summer. And I think through his friends, I was able to start making my own friends because a lot of their siblings were my age. And it was the next year, it was the winter, like the fall winter of 2008. And my brother decided, because he had all of these friends who wanted to join, or who are already part of year-round swimming with the YMCA, that he really wanted to join the Torpedoes, which was the YMCA team in our area. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. I was involved in dance. I, had friends. I really was like, I don't want to add this thing to my plate that's going to take up all my time. And so my mom was respectful of that. She was like, nope, I get that. Like, it's good to have balance. It's good to be well-rounded. So there was no pressure for me to join the year-round team until I went to his first swim meet. And I remember sitting on the bleachers, watching him swim and watching everyone else swim and being like, okay, well, this is kind of stupid. Like, as long as I'm going to be at these swim meets, I might as well swim too. And so I have this vivid memory of like halfway through that meet, turning to my mom and saying, so is it too late for me to join? And I think she was excited. I think she was hoping that I would come to that conclusion on my own. And by the end of that day, I was registered for the team as well. And I had a good experience with club swimming, but I think my favorite experience was high school swimming. That is where I really was like around my best friends, and I enjoyed the social aspect. I finally felt that I was challenged appropriately in the workouts, and I started to get that competitive drive where I felt like, okay, wait, I actually have some potential, and, I want to push myself and set goals. And that's where I really thrived, was high school swimming. By the end of high school swimming, though, I felt a bit burnt out. And by a bit, I mean a lot. I had a lot of performance anxiety that I don't think was fully addressed by my coaches. I think it was really seen as I was a really great practicer. I would get into practice and I could push myself through tough sets, and I really enjoyed that. But when it came time to get up on the blocks, even though I knew that I was capable of doing this race and doing it well, I would just completely shut down, and my times reflected that. Like, I was still good, but I think I could have been better if I could have overcome that performance anxiety. But nobody really helped me with that. And I didn't really have the words to express, like, I feel like I'm going to die every time I do this race. And it's not just I'm nervous. It's like, debilitating. And I wish that somebody had helped me address that. But as a result, I didn't end up swimming in college because I just, couldn't take the mental pressure.
Sure.
And that's my journey through like youth age group swimming.
So can you tell me a favorite memory you had, one from club swimming and one from high school swimming?
Yes. Oh, okay. So I think with I'm going to try to, I'll keep it fun. So I don't often have I think my best memories, and I think everyone can say this too, the work that we put in the pool it's a slog. And I think, everyone has those couple practices that they think back on and you're like, oh, that was brutal. Like, the ones that stick out to you are not the ones that you're like, wow, that was a great set. I really enjoyed that. That's the ones that you go home and you're like, oh, that was death. Like, I didn't think I was going to make it through, So I wouldn't say some of my best memories came from that, but with club swimming, I think a memory that really stands out to me is from that first season when I was on the Torpedoes. I really was struggling to make friends, especially because I joined in the middle of the season. It felt like, everyone already had their pre-established friend groups. And at this point I was 11, and so many of the kids joined when they were younger, and I felt very behind in finding my people. And there was this one girl, Miranda, who she was fast. She was a good swimmer. And I was a little bit afraid of her. We were the same age, same grade. I mean, really, all things considered, I shouldn't have been intimidated by her, and she's just the sweetest person you'll ever meet. So but at the time I was very intimidated. And it was, the end of that first season, we had our banquet. And I was watching my brother hang out with all of his friends. I was watching everybody else hang out with their friends. And I was just kind of sitting there by myself. And this girl, Miranda, came up to me and she suggested, hey, I was wondering if you wanted to come over after this and like have a sleepover. And
Mhm.
I was like, somebody wants to hang out with me? Like they're, she's inviting
Right.
me. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, of course. And her mom took a picture of the two of us at that banquet. And I mean, we look so young and just so goofy. We're typical 11-year-olds, right? Like we just look little. And she invited me over for a sleepover and we just clicked. All of a sudden, like, I'd spent that whole season being intimidated by her. And then we're being goofy, we're hanging out, we're watching movies, we're making silly videos. And we've been inseparable ever since. And, I still think of her as one of my best friends. And I think that is such a testament to like, the power of the friendships that you can make. Through that intensity when you're like having those tough sets together and you're working hard and pushing through and like you have the camaraderie of the people who have gone through that with you and that extends outside the pool as well. So I would say that is one memory from club swimming that really, I mean, continues to impact me to this day.
That's really good. And what about high school?
High school swimming, gosh, I literally have so many. I mean, truly, I think some of my fondest memories, I would even say my junior year swim season. I would repeat that whole season in a heartbeat any day, like no questions asked. We had new coaches that year, and they were really, I mean, everybody just shed time like crazy because we had had coaches before who were a little bit burnt out. And we finally had coaches come in who actually trained us and knew like, okay, you're a 500 freestyler and you're a 200 freestyler, and here's how we're going to train you for your specific events. And we shed time accordingly. And that season we had a lot of snow days. Our winter break was extended like 2 full weeks because we had so many snow days and cold days. And when there's no school, you're not supposed to practice, right? Like that's a school activity, so those are supposed to be canceled as well. But you can't just cancel 2 weeks of practice in the middle of January during high school swim season. Like it just doesn't
Sure.
work that way. And so our coach, her son was on the team, her two sons were on the team, and she kind of had them informally organize like, hey guys, we're gonna meet at the pool like at this time. If anybody wants to come, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we'd love
Yes.
to swim with us. And they happened to come with sets with them, but so we got in and the coaches weren't allowed to be on deck, but we kind of kept things running ourselves. And I think it was just like, that was such a core memory because like, afterward we'd play on the slides at the pool because it was a little more fun because it wasn't the official practice, right? We could have a little fun, but it was also just cool to just be like, no, we're all so committed. Like we've worked so hard this season. We don't want to lose it. Like we're all voluntarily showing up on our snow day to make it
Sure.
happen. So that was
Mhm.
a good memory. And then
That's
that season I qualified for districts in the 500. And that was the only time that I ever qualified for districts in an individual event. And I don't know, it just was very, very special.
that sounds beautiful. I'm gonna ask you about your the strokes that you would be swimming. Did you always have a favorite stroke and what that was all about? Did that change from club swimming to high school?
100%. Yeah. I think when I was swimming on the summer swim team, I always remember my events were 5, 33, 55, and 65. So that would be 5 and 65 were the medley relay and the freestyle relay. 33 was the 25 butterfly. 55 was the 25 breaststroke. And then those obviously shifted to the 50 and 100 when I got to those age groups. But I think I just was legal in breaststroke and butterfly. And at that age, it's like, oh, you're legal in it. That's your stroke, because not everybody is legal. And I eventually became 100 butterflyer, much to my dismay, because I went to high school. And when I was in 8th grade, there was a really outstanding senior who was 100 butterflyer. So she graduated and then I came up and it's like, oh, I guess it's Mallory. And I was like, oh, great. Okay. So I swam the 100 fly a lot that season and I'm actually pretty good at it. I did enjoy that event ultimately. But then I started realizing that like, okay, so there's a girl, she was a senior when I was a freshman. And this is a silly anecdote, but I'm queer, I'm gay. I did not realize that in high school. But there was this girl who was a senior when I was a freshman and she was the distance swimmer. Like she was the 500 freestyler. And I just thought she was the bee's knees. I look back on that and I realized that I had a crush on her. But at the time, like I didn't know that. But I was like, oh, she's a 500 freestyler. So am I, and I really wanted to start swimming the 500. As it turns out, like regardless of what got me into the 500, I was pretty good at that. I'm really good at picking a pace and sticking with it over and over again. And so I eventually grew into being a 500 swimmer, and that is, where I excel today is in the distance freestyle. There was one meet in high school that I swam both the 100 fly and the 500 because I think I think someone was sick and I needed to do both. And that was pretty brutal because they're pretty much back to back with just the 100 freestyle in between. But if I were to pick an event today, distance freestyle all the way, or I think the 100 IM is the elite event. I would swim that any day. I think that is just the perfect balance of strokes and distance.
Yeah, I like how you went from being a breaststroke and butterfly right into being an IMer, because that's something how you have to be like good at the shorter axis strokes
Right.
and to be able to do that. So that's a very interesting transition. So do
Yeah.
you still swim the 100 IM?
Yeah, so I don't do a ton of meets, if I'm being honest. A lot of that comes down to the fact that I'm also a swim coach. I coach one of the local YMCA teams, and I also volunteer coach for a high school team around here. I live in Columbus, Ohio now. And if I have a spare weekend where I happen to have a free day on the same day as a master's swim meet, I usually don't want to spend my free weekend at another swim meet because all my other weekends are spent at swim meets. So that's usually the biggest barrier for me, is just like wanting to have a day where I'm not smelling chlorine at all. But when I do get in the pool, when I do get to swim a swim meet, I will always sign myself up for an IM, whether that is the 100, 200, 400. I've actually really grown to like the 400 IM as well. Because I just think, it's like the perfect balance of distance, and you don't have the repetitiveness of just swimming freestyle. You get to switch it up. So I do still very much love the IM. And I do think that the breaststroke 100% is my weakest link of the whole race. And I know that, and maybe someday I'll overcome that.
That sounds fascinating. I know we started with the journey of club swimming and high school swimming. So after high school, you said you took a break for college. And what made you come back into masters?
Yeah. This is probably my favorite part of the whole story, and so much of it involves coaching. The summer swim team that I grew up with is so big that it's broken up into the younger 10 and unders have one practice, and then the older kids 11 and up have their own practice. And they have always taken high school swimmers and hired some of them as coaches to help with the younger kids, and each person coaches a lane. And so I could not wait until the summer after my sophomore year when I could start coaching. I mean, that is what I wanted to do as a kid. I idolized my coaches. I thought they were so cool, and I looked up to them so much, and I wanted to be that person for someone else. And so summer after sophomore year of high school, I started coaching lane one. And lane one, I mean, it is just the most special place in the whole world, is lane one of the Amherst summer swim team. That will always be the best. I literally have goosebumps right now talking about it. It's the best job I've ever had and ever will have. And that's because you get these 4, 5, 6-year-olds, first time jumping in the water. Half of them can't swim. And by the end of that first season, they can swim a 25. Some of them can swim a 50. I mean, it's just pure magic. And that is where the love of the sport begins. I mean, you're never going to fall in love with the sport because you're doing these grueling sets and you're, so exhausted and whatever. That's not where the love comes from. The love comes from those core memories when you're just kind of splashing around, maybe playing some games, but, goofing off with your friends in the summer swim team. And there are so many kids now who are in high school who I coached 10 years ago in lane one. And I just think that it's just the coolest thing. And I like to think that at some point 10 years ago when they were in kindergarten, I instilled this love of swimming in them, right? And I coached for the summer swim team every year up until 2019. And that's when I graduated from college. And that was my last summer at home. And I was really devastated because I thought, my only experience with coaches is that they were teachers because they had their summer and their evenings off. And, the swim schedule worked around their teaching schedule, right? And I wasn't going to be a teacher. And I was thinking, okay, this is my last summer coaching. And I cried. I mean, I wept because I was just, this is it. I'll never be a coach again. And even though I wasn't swimming in college, I still so much was involved with summer swim team. And that really kept me in the sport. I mean, it was just a given. If I'm at home, even if I'm just helping with the swim meets and can't make it to the practices, I'll be there. So then we all know what happened after 2019, the next summer, 2020, COVID, right? And so nobody was swimming. Nobody was, coaching or anything like that. The following summer, 2021, I was at an Airbnb in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I was staying in this Airbnb that had like a pool. It was like a condo kind of complex. And after we'd go hiking for the day, I'd come back and I'd sit by the pool, and I was just planning to like read by the pool. And I found that I wasn't even picking up my book because I was just watching the kids play in the pool. All of these young kids like, watch this, cannonball, whatever. And there's that sound of kids playing in the water and, splashing around. And I just felt so sad. I missed it so much. I mean, in that moment, I would have given anything to just be standing by the pool, stopwatch in hand, saying big arms, fast feet, right?
Yeah.
And so I went inside and I looked up YMCA Central Ohio swim team, thinking there's got to be somebody who needs like a timer, right? Or maybe I'll like become an official. I will literally do anything. Like I'll run the bullpen, like give me a job. I'm in it. And so I reached out to the YMCA that's like literally 5 minutes from my house. And I, asked if they needed any help, and I talked about my coaching experience and background, and sure enough, their head coach had just left for another position and they needed someone. And so the rest is history. And that is a very, very long story short, or long story long, into getting into why I'm a master swimmer, is because being around the pool again, then I missed it. I had given myself enough of a break of being a swimmer that now I'm standing by the pool watching kids swim laps, and I'm like, oh crap, I want to do this too. And as a YMCA coach, I have a free YMCA membership. So I'm like, okay, I'll start swimming laps. But you know how it goes. Like when you're swimming laps on your own, you're not going to be motivated to give yourself a tough set. You need that coach to be standing, giving you the set, saying, yes, you can do it. Go on, you can do it. And so I reached out to a couple of the masters teams in the area, and I tried out one, and I couldn't really fit that in my schedule. And now I'm with the Central Ohio Aquatics, and I could not possibly love it more. I mean, it is really just the best experience. Our practices are at 5:45 in the morning. Never did I think I would be going to morning practice again. And I just love it. You know how it goes. Like there's something so special about, jumping in the pool at that hour in the day, and then like going about the rest of your day knowing that you did this before the sun even rose, and getting to have the locker room camaraderie with my teammates, and going to meets together and stuff. I feel lucky every single day. I mean, I sound like a goofball. It sounds like you scripted me to say this, but like every day that I jump in the water, I feel so lucky to get to do it, because I thought that was a part of my life that I had to leave behind in high school, and it's just so cool that I get to do it the rest of my life.
That is, no, it definitely does not sound like it's scripted for the listeners listening. This is not scripted, but Mallory has been sharing the experience they had for their journey, and I can't wait to dive in more. So I'm going to ask you, what is your life been as a swimmer and as a coach? How do you manage that time?
I get asked this question all the time, especially now it's high school swim season. I volunteer coach a team that practices at 5:15 in the mornings. And they practice some afternoons, and I can't make it to their afternoon practices. So on any given day, I'm like waking up at 5:50 or waking up at like 4 a.m., getting to the pool by 5:15 to coach. And then, I have a job. I have like a 9 to 5 that I work as well. And then I get to the afternoon and I have to coach this other swim team that I'm the head coach for. And it is a lot. Like I am driving all over Central Ohio, and my weekends, like, the swim meets are not short. They're very notoriously long, right? And I was talking to somebody about this recently, because they're asking like, why do you do this? How do you do this? Because I really do sacrifice my social life. I mean, I'm 28 years old, and a lot of my friends are like, going out on the weekends, especially when I was a little bit younger too. At this point, people have settled down a little bit, but people are going out and they're, going to bars and all that. And by the end of a swim meet on a Saturday, could I go out? Sure. Like there is time in the day for me to do that. But at that point, I'm like, I'm going home. I'm sitting on my couch. I am ordering takeout because I can't even bring myself to go to a restaurant. And yet I love it so, so much. I mean, I could not sustain that if I didn't love it. And on the days when I'm not coaching early in the mornings, I'm waking up so I can go to my own swim practice. Because if I don't swim at 5:45 in the morning, I'm not going to have time to do it later on because I'm coaching. And you find a way to fit it in, because that is, I mean, that's my social life. Like, I love seeing the kids during the off season. When I don't see them, I'm like, oh, I miss them, even though they're so much younger than me. I miss seeing their parents because they become the people who I hang out with as well. And it's just the swimming community, I think, is something that's so, I think it is special to swimming. Now, I'm not a soccer person. I didn't grow up playing, basketball or whatever. So maybe there's community that is rich there. But you find that, like, somebody who I swim with right now on my master's team grew up in, like, Boston, like totally not in the same place that I grew up in, but swam in college with somebody who I grew up swimming with. Like, it's that kind of small community where it's like, everybody has less than 6 degrees of separation from each other. And I just love that so much. Like, you find someone who's a swimmer and you're like, oh, you're a swimmer too. And all of a sudden you have all this in common. You find somebody who, I don't know, like, if you both played soccer, I don't think you would, like, latch onto somebody as quickly as, like, knowing the swimming experience. So while, yes, it is a huge time commitment for me to be a coach and a swimmer and trying to juggle all those things, I literally would not have it any other way. I mean, that is the one thing that I will not sacrifice, is my commitment to coaching and my commitment to swimming on my own.
That is so exciting to hear, all the excitement that you've been sharing. I can just sit here and listen to your stories right now. So tell me about how your life as a coach has been. I know how you started. So, like, how do you still teach summer swim? Do you still do high school coaching?
Yeah. So when people ask me when is swim season, I think it's easier for me to say when it isn't. And for us, that is most of March, all of April, half of July, and all of August. That is the non-swim season. And those times, like, I miss it, but also, like, I get home at 5:00 and I'm like, okay, so what do I do now? I'm bored. I'm like, what do people do with those extra hours in their day? So I think that, a lot of it is, like, time management or whatever. And, you have to have some distance to make you miss it again, to reinvigorate yourself for the next swim season. Because if I was doing it constantly, I mean, I would get burnt out. But I just love it so much. Like, I love going to the meets, and I've befriended some of the other coaches from the other teams. And, the reason why I started coaching for the high school team is because of the opportunity I had to learn from the head coach. I'm doing that one as a volunteer gig. I'm not getting paid for that. But and people are like, why would you do that if it's volunteer? Like, you should be getting paid. And it's like, no, I am getting paid. I'm getting to, like, get to know all of the kids, get to know all those swimmers, and I'm getting to learn from the other coaches. And I think that to me is enough. And if I get a cool t-shirt every once in a while, that's a bonus too.
Yeah. T-shirts are a plus.
Yes, exactly. As if I needed more t-shirts, right? I don't. Yeah. But I really just, like, I firmly believe that you have to, like, put back into things that you've gotten out of, so it's like, I have gotten so much of my life out of swimming. I mean, I would not be who I am today if not for having decided to join the Amherst summer swim team. And I firmly believe that, like, I got so much out of that because of my coaches, who are devoting all of their hours of their weekends and their lives and sacrificing time with their families, and, their ability to vacation whenever they want, because they have to work their lives around the swim schedule. And I'm like, I love being able to give that to kids. And, like, when the kids are asking, like, oh, why weren't you here today? Like, what, why weren't you here? And I know that they miss me. Like, my presence was missed. Like, I like having that impact on them. Yeah. I'll share one quick anecdote, actually. I've been going through a breakup, right? I'll be a bit vulnerable. I'm going through a breakup with my partner of, like, almost 6 years, right? And that's been tough. And the very day after I got broken up with, I had to go to swim practice because I was the only coach available on that Tuesday. And even though I was crying and I was so upset and I could hardly make it through the workday, I knew I had to somehow like pull it together to go to swim practice, right? Like I just, if I'm not there, it's not happening.
Right.
I took some deep breaths and I called a friend and I, took a little walk and I composed myself and I go on the pool deck and I coach. And it was clear that I was not my best self that day. Like I was not enthusiastic. I probably was just kind of like halfway doing things. And I was trying to hold it together. And somebody said something to me like, oh, there was a person who worked at the Y and she came up and gave me a big hug. Like she's just a hugger. She felt that I needed a hug that day. She gave me a big hug and she hugged me so tight. And I just started crying again because it just felt like that,
Release.
love. Yes. And that it released that. And so I started crying and of course all the kids stopped swimming and they're looking at me and they're like, why is Coach Mallory crying? What's going on? And this girl, Lily, who is a high schooler, she's 14. She stopped what she was doing. She took off her goggles and she was like, Coach Mallory, what's going on? Like, you haven't smiled all day. What's going on? And then all the other kids are like, yeah, what's going on? And I took a deep breath and I was going to be honest with them, right? I was like, because they've heard me talk about my ex before. Like, so I was like, yeah, I'm going through a breakup. Like I just got broken up with last night and I'm just having a really crummy day. And they all went, oh, like you could see the like hurt that they share. And they were like, oh my gosh. And, they felt bad. And so I was like, okay, go swim, do the next 100, whatever. And after that 100, Lily once again took off her goggles. And this girl, like, she has given me so much sass over the years. I mean, we have a good rapport where there's some banter but sass is really the emotion I get from her the most. And she just looks at me very seriously and goes, Coach Mallory, I love you. And she was like, you're so nice and you're so kind and you always push us to do your best. And I'm always, I show up because I get to see you. And, she had tried to swim for another swim team last year and she came back and she's like, I came back because of you. And she said, thank you for being here today. I know it's a bad day for you, but thank you for being here. Like, it really means a lot that you were here. And then I'm like, okay, well now I'm crying again because that was so sweet. And, it just was so touching. And then you got some of the other kids who are younger and they're like, yeah, and you don't need her anyway. You know what I mean? And they were kind of like hyping me up. I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm really at that point yet. But it was just, that was a moment that really struck me of like, wow, like these kids really mean something to me. And like the impact that they have, that I have on them, like they have just as much of an impact on me too. And that is what I get out of coaching. Like there's so much more that you get out of swim team than just swimming. And it's those relationships. It's like the coach swimmer relationship. It's a swimmer relationship. I mean, it is really just one big family. And that's how I'm able to time manage all of that because I know that like it's enriching my life as much as I'm giving back to theirs.
Yeah. I'm going to share a quick moment if I can. So Swim Stories Unplugged started with me giving back to the community as well.
Yeah.
Because I went through a journey of my health treatments for cancer. And after that, I was actually looking for a pool. And I like to say master swimming found me because I was just looking for a pool to swim. And little did I know what the masters community was going to do to me. And masters swimming just changed my life. So in order to celebrate 2 years of completion of my treatments and as a way of saying thank you to the masters team, my goal as Swim Stories Unplugged is to reach people to share their inspiring journeys, not just to me, but I want to share it with all of the masters community so that everybody knows, everybody knows Olympian stories, everybody knows their background, but there are so many master swimmers who have inspiring stories. So that was the reason why Swim Stories Unplugged started on June 28th.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Yeah. And it is amazing to me, like how many people, like nobody just, this is what I always say, like when you're in high school or whatever, and like, or growing up and a parent is driving you, and you're kind of being forced in some ways to get up and go to the pool at 5:45 in the morning, whether it's your varsity letter on the line or whether it's your parents saying, get in the car, we're going, I paid all this money, get in the car. But it takes it takes a special someone to, as an adult on their own volition, wake up and get to the pool at that hour. Like, whether that's in the morning or the afternoon or whatever, right? Like, you don't have to be there, and yet you are, and you show up, and like, everyone has a reason why they're there. They're not just there because they like couldn't sleep, and so they're like, gee, a tough swim practice sounds good. I mean, maybe some are, but that's a story too,
Right.
and I think you're so right in that there's like so many even like mundane stories there's just a lot of depth to them that you get to hear because of masters swimming.
Yeah. And like I really enjoy the meets because of that, for the same reason. I do go because I do enjoy them, and I enjoy the camaraderie more than anything. And
For
just
sure.
last weekend I was in Boston for a meet.
Oh, cool. How did
Yeah.
that go for you?
It went well. I dropped my own times, and that's the best thing that happened. So I got PBs, and I think I'm gonna celebrate that.
Nice. Very good. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And last week I had NZ, and she was talking about how like one of her stories was like how she experienced her swimming journey, and how she experienced a swimmer who was frustrated with somebody else's, and somebody else was faster, and she was like reminded the other person, you're swimming against your own self. So I'm holding on to that, and I'm gonna remember that when I go for every meet. If I did a PB and I dropped my own time and I had fun, that was the best thing. So that's where we are. All right, let's get back to you. What do you have any swim goals for yourself in the future?
Yeah. So like I said, I don't go to meets as often as I would like to in a perfect world. Like if every weekend was 4 days long, sure, sign me up for all the meets, right?
Right.
But just for my own sanity, I don't do a lot. However, this past year marked 10 years since I graduated high school. And so I did try to go to as many meets as possible, just as like that gift to myself that like, hey, you could still do this. And 10 years ago, you thought that this was over forever, and now you get to do it. So let's celebrate. And I was really pleased that my 500 time, like I was able to get it to pretty close to where I was in high school. And I ended up getting, say that again.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It still wasn't my best time, but like, it was close enough that it was like, okay, I still got this, right? And my 100 freestyle, I've never broken a minute in 100 freestyle. I think part of that is just I never swam it really because I was always in the IM or the 500, right? Like that wasn't my event. And I did go a personal best in the 100 freestyle. Still wasn't sub 1 minute. It was like 101.16. And my best from high school was like 101.69. And so I was like, I got really emotional at the end of that race where I was like, oh my gosh, like I still have this, right? So my goal is always just to like, keep chasing those personal bests, because I think that, I thought that my best was behind me. And it's really, really cool and just so inspiring to see people who are my age, people who are older than me, go personal bests as master swimmers, because it's like, yeah, you could do this your whole life. Like you didn't peak in high school. You didn't peak when you were 16. Like there's still so much more possibility. But this year, I actually did my first marathon swim. A group of my master's teammates and I, we did swim to the moon in Michigan, and I did a 10K, and that was hard. It was way harder than I expected to be. I was like, oh, 10,000 meters, that's nothing, right? Like just a few hours. And I was shocked by how sore I was during that. And so now I want to do it again. And now that I know what I'm getting myself into, now I know how it'll feel. My goal is to go under 3 hours. I did 3:06 this year. So my goal is to go under 3 hours in the 10K. And I really like open water. I enjoy that. So.
Okay, I'm gonna come to the next question, right? This is the perfect segue. Have you always been an open water swimmer, or do you like a mix of swimming pool and open water?
Yeah, I think if I still lived in the Cleveland area, I would do more open water swimming just because of my proximity to Lake Erie. Um, and when my family goes to Atwood Lake, I will still swim in the lake. My brother and I try to swim across the lake, which is about a mile each way, right? Like it's not
Mhm.
terribly far. Um, so I do really enjoy open water swimming. A lot of that is because I hate turns. I do flip turns. Obviously, they're a necessity, or like, you know what I mean? Like they're not a necessity, but you do flip turns. But um, I don't really like them. I hate underwaters. I know that, that's my hot take. And so I like that open water swimming, you don't have to do that. You just like swim in a straight line. However, I also hate spotting. And so I think it's like a battle between which do I hate more, flip turns or spotting? And I actually don't like sighting very much. So I guess I would take flip turns over that. I love swim practice. I love doing a set. So as far as training goes, I would so much rather be in a pool. But as far as racing goes, at this point in my life, I like open water races more than pool races because I don't get the same anxiety.
Okay, fair enough. And for marathon training, do you have to do any kind of special training?
I just did a lot of distance sets. Like there was one other person who I swim with who was also doing the 10K, and she and I were cranking out like, 6,000 yards, 8,000 yards. Like I didn't probably didn't spend as much time in the pool as I could have during the training for this. I mean, I did, but like, when we practice for an hour a day, you can only really bust out like so many yards in an hour.
Mhm.
And so our Saturday practices, which are an hour and a half, we were doing more distance. I think in a perfect world, I could have done more, but again, I'm coaching, right? So,
Yeah.
um, there's always more you could be doing, but I think given my time constraints, I got enough yards in. But I think the longest I did was it was 8,200 yards in like a 2-ish hour time frame, and that was just like swimming more or less nonstop. And I knew I could finish it, right? Like I knew that I
Right.
would be able to get that 10,000 meters, and like I wasn't just going to spontaneously drown, probably. But maybe going into it next year, I'll put some more effort into the training.
Nice. I'm sure you'll get there. And what about your goals as a coach? Do you?
Yeah, our YMCA team, like it has been around forever. Like literally, this is the oldest YMCA team in Central Ohio. Like there's a lot of history there. And as some of the other Ys have popped up, like they have gotten bigger and faster. And like there's just and this is a good problem to have, right? Like there's so many different club teams that people could join in Central Ohio. And a lot of them just, they go to bigger and better programs. And our pool is 4 lanes, and we do a lot with those 4 lanes. Like the shirt that I'm wearing right now, actually, it says the slogan that I've kind of coined is there's room for everyone in our 4 lanes, because even though there's like a 4 lane pool, right? Like our team is very much more like inner city, right? And so we have kids from all different backgrounds, whether that's socioeconomic, different ability levels, different, racial, ethnic, nationalities. Like we have so many families of immigrants on our team. We have so many people who speak different languages. We made a shirt last year that said, like swim team, I think, yeah, swim team, in all of the different languages that all of our families speak. And there's like 14 different languages that our families speak. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? It is such a special team because you know how it goes. Like swimming is typically a very white upper middle class sport. And when we have a majority like Black swimmers on the team, that's pretty freaking cool. And so my goal is to continue to foster this environment where like, everybody is welcome on the team, and like you aren't just on the team because like, oh, you know we're a ragtag group of people, but it's like, oh no, we can all be fast together and we can all improve. And like, even though I have language barriers when I'm trying to talk to parents and tell them about what a swim meet is and how to sign up for one. And like sometimes there's language barriers when coaching kids because I'm like trying to describe these like nuance of technique that like maybe they don't know that English yet. And yet we can all still improve together and we can learn from each other. And my goal is to just like continue to foster that environment. And now that we have like a good core group of people who keep returning, because the first couple years when I was coaching, it was rebuilding from COVID and there was some ebb and flow and changeover. And now it feels like, okay, we have our core group of people. Now we're adding to that. And I want to get somebody to zones. I want to get somebody to, state in high school, right? Like I want somebody who's like, oh yeah, I got my start on that swim team when I was 5 and now look at me go. And it takes some time and effort, but we have some kids who I'm like, okay, now we're there. Like I see the potential, not just the potential, but like it's coming to fruition. We're making it happen. So it's just a really special place. And so I think just striking that balance between like, you know, a place where people can like push themselves to try to be the best swimmers they can be, but also just like learn from the people around them and be the most inclusive and welcoming and kind person that they can be to at the end of their time on our team.
That's really amazing. And I also meant to tell you that slogan that you have, that everyone, there's room for everyone in 4 lanes. I really love that. So
It's
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I don't know how it came to me, but like, because I'm always lamenting the fact that we only have 4 lanes because so many of the other YMCA's have like 6, 8 lanes, and we just have 4. And it could be chaotic at times, but when another person wants to join the team, it's not like, oh, we're at capacity. It's like, you want to join? Come on in. There's room for everybody. And I think now, especially like with everything that's going on, like it is so important to make people aware of like where they belong. Like
Mhm.
it is so important for me, for my swimmers and their parents to know that like when they show up to swim practice, if that can be the one place where they kind of let their guard down the whole day and they know that they belong, great. Like that is your place. Whether you've had a bad day at school, whether you had, a fight with a friend, or whether you have a lot of homework when you've got going on, or whether you're dealing with something like much more insurmountable, like, racism, or you're dealing with like the fact that you're an immigrant in the United States right now, like swim practice should be the time when you could just come and like let your guard down and just be. And that is, I'm so committed to that. And that's the slogan. Like we've slapped it on all of our sweatshirts, like it's on everything. Like, that I firmly believe there's room for everybody in our 4 lanes. And I want to keep making that happen.
That is really amazing what you're doing. And I'm going to say, Coach Mallory, that is really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any moment that you'd share where water felt like home?
Always, every day that I jump in. I think my first master's practice back will always stand out to me. There's a couple practices, there's always some times where it's like, oh, okay, this is really special, but I went to that first practice and this was with a different team, but I was trying them out and they were swimming. It was in August of 2021 and they were swimming in an outdoor pool. And, there's something so much more special about swimming in an outdoor pool as opposed to an indoor pool. Like, regardless, that's going to be special. But I remember coming home and smelling like chlorine. And that feeling like, you've done a tough set and like, you just feel fatigued, right? Like your body feels a little bit tired. Your skin smells like chlorine. No matter how much you shower, it's still kind of there. And I got home, it was like around 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, oh God, I miss this. It just was this like full body love of like, I cannot believe that I get to do this again. It just was like, I remember smelling that chlorine and falling asleep and feeling like, okay, like I'm home again. Like this is, I'm where I'm comfortable. And yeah, I think like I said, like I feel grateful every time I get to do it because it is such a gift. And then, another more recent example, again, the breakup, like the morning I didn't fall asleep at all. Like I hardly slept the night that I went through that breakup. And I was like, well, I'm up, I might as well go swimming. And so I went to swim practice and I was crying. I mean, like my friends knew, like the people I was swimming with knew, the coach knew what had happened the night before. And they just, come as you are. There's room for everybody. Like, we love to have you. And I was crying. I mean, I was crying so hard. And, it's hard to cry when you're underwater. So I've got my snorkel on. So at least I can breathe as I'm crying. And the way that like not only the water but the people held me as well. And there
Mhm.
was a new guy in my lane who I had never swam with before, and he's watching me cry and he's kind of giving me this look like, dude, the set's not that hard, why are you crying, like what's going on, and the coach was like, break up, and and everyone was just so nice to me. And in the locker room afterward, as I was crying, like there's an older woman who I swim with, and she was telling me, just talking to me, like just saying nice things to me. And she just was, it's that like ability to be with people who are like different ages and have been through different stages of life. And like, I don't know, I felt so held by my teammates in the water that day, that it was just a reminder of like, this is my happy place. This is where I feel safe and where I can go in good times and in bad.
And I really loved every moment of this. And I'm just in for the sake of like, keeping the time of our podcast, I'm going to wrap this up. And I'm going to say thank you so much, Mallory, for sharing your swim story with me on Swim Stories Unplugged.
And thank you so much for having me. This has just been such a wonderful hour getting to talk about swimming with you.
And there it is, another lap in the books. Coach Mallory just reminded us that swimming isn't about the blocks or the banners. It's about the 5-year-old who learns to glide across lane one, the 14-year-old who stops mid set to tell her coach, I love you, and the 28-year-old who cries into her snorkel at 5:45 a.m. because the water and the people in it held her when nothing else could. If today's story hit home, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment with your first splash memory. I read every single one. And turn on those notifications so you're the first one to dive into the next episode. Swim Stories Unplugged is my thank you to the Masters community that saved me. Every guest, every lane, every shared tear in the locker room. This is how we keep the love alive. Until next time, keep your goggles clear, your heart open, and remember the water's always waiting. I'm Hetal Sampat, your show host. See you in the deep end.